Whew, this is going to be a heavy video, man. There's a lot of stuff we got to talk about today. There's a lot of stuff. Let's get into it. Phil Spencer had an interview with Kinda Funny, and found out about it yesterday that they were going to do the interview. And a lot of people were just like, what kind of questions are they going to ask? Well, I watched it twice actually. And I actually, first off, bravo to them. I think they did a fantastic job. They asked pretty hard questions. Wish they had time to ask more, but you run out of time when you interview people like Phil Spencer. They only got a certain amount of time, or only give you a certain amount of time. Let's go over some of the incidents and some of the conversations that they had with Phil Spencer. They talked about Redfall. They talked about a lot about Redfall. This is the part of the interview that I don't really agree with Phil Spencer. You know, he kind of seemed like this was the game that they originally designed, and this is the way I took it. Obviously, maybe it wasn't this way, and maybe he meant it a different way, but the way I took it is he's like, look, the developers could have did better, but this is the game they wanted to make, and I wasn't going to intervene and make them make something else. He gave it an example of like forcing them to make what they make best. I don't think that's the issue here. Redfall is just a game that, as Phil Spencer and as the person that is doing the majority of the work for the Xbox on the executive level, I feel like it is your job to make sure these games are relevant, to make sure these games do well, and to make sure these games don't affect your brand in a negative way. And I feel like you failed on that, Phil. And it's not nothing looking down on you. I do think there's circumstances that you didn't really go into. I think there's a lot of stuff. You want my personal opinion? I feel like Phil Spencer is low key, falling on the sword for Bethesda, and that's what a good leader does. He takes ownership of it when a lot of what's wrong isn't his fault. We have heard from a variety of sources that Microsoft doesn't really have too much hands on when it comes to these studios, and that's good and bad at the same time. And the reason it's good is because you allow creative freedom to really, flex that creative muscle. Every developer needs it. I feel like they're quote unquote passion projects. That's why a lot of people call them. They're necessary because it keeps people happy at the studio, so they're not working on the same stuff over and over again. And it can potentially lead to better franchises that you could actually work on. And I think that's the bigger question here is whose fault is it with Redfall? Is Redfall the way Redfall was because of the circumstances going into it? Or is Redfall the way it was because of bad management or Arcane? Now, what do we do with Arcane? He did say that they're going to continue to support it. That's cool. I personally feel like at this point, is the game worth supporting? Maybe they should just cut ties and just put all of their effort into a new IP or a new project, maybe Dishonored 2 or Dishonored 3. I mean, I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But what I will say is Redfall hurt your product. Redfall hurt the Xbox brand. It's probably up there with their own Cyberpunk. Now, will I put it on a Cyberpunk level? Probably not. I would say that Cyberpunk is still a worse scenario for CD Projekt Red than Redfall was for Xbox. But what I will say is it hurt the brand just as much. Now, maybe not financially as just as much, but the perception on Xbox wasn't good from the start. And I feel like Redfall really carried on that perception. And perception is key. Perception is everything. When people come to expect something from your brand, it's hard to get that back. It's hard to get that trust back. I said it in my video yesterday. And right now, Xbox is in that situation where they're about to lose that. I don't think Redfall is going to do it. I think Redfall is one of those things where people was excited for it, but I don't think anyone expected like a fantastic experience from Redfall. But what I will say is it takes the sell out of Starfield, and it puts more pressure on Starfield for no reason. And I think that is the biggest reason. That's the biggest issue. We're putting pressure on other games because this game didn't succeed. And it is what it is. People could say maybe I'm exaggerating on that, but I think all you'd have to do is go look at Twitter and the masses, and you got people making YouTube videos, speaking to thousands and thousands of people. They're going to leave impressions on them, and then before you know it, their opinions is the viewers' opinions. So it is what it is on that. One thing I did like what Phil Spencer said. He talked about Starfield, and to me, what it seemed like to me. And I know that I'm only pretty much on the outside speaking in, only got limited information on the matter. But it seemed like to me that their biggest focus as Microsoft was Starfield. And I think that was their biggest focus. Clearly, they went in there trying to save the 60 frames fiasco. He even said he sent Compulsion in there. So they did send people there to do it, but it was too late. They couldn't get that 60 frames at launch. But to me, the 60 frames at that point was irrelevant because the game itself on that level was underwhelming to start out with. Shout out to Skill Up. Definitely go look at his video. He brought up a lot of concerns, and to me, adding 60 frames wouldn't have fixed that. And I hope that, they can turn that brand around. But to me, Redfall took a hit. I don't even know if a sequel would fix that game because of how bad it got hit. Who knows? I've always said every game deserves a sequel. So if they took the concept that Redfall was, I think, originally supposed to be, and they actually put some money behind it and some talent, then maybe they can have a Redfall 2 that people love playing. There's definitely a possibility of that. But Starfield, he said that they pretty much sent people over there to Bethesda out the gate for Starfield. And a lot of the time, he didn't shake energy to shake off energy to Starfield, but I do feel like he tried to connect. Look, we understand Redfall is underwhelming to the majority of you, and I get it, but you don't have to believe me, but Starfield's gonna hit. And it kind of put a little bit of faith when it means to come to Starfield, because the way he was wording things, it's like he's very confident in Starfield. He said multiple times stuff like, you don't have to believe me. And until you have that controller in your hand and you're smiling and you're having a good time, you don't have to believe anything I say. And you shouldn't. I said multiple times, we're at that state with Microsoft and Phil Spencer where actions mean way louder than words. Phil, you can come out there and you can say on Twitter over and over again this. You can say we apologize for the quality of these games. That ain't going to matter. People want to see action at this point. And the way he was talking about Starfield, I didn't really think that Redfall was going to indicate anything whatsoever to Starfield in terms of quality, but I can understand why people would feel that way. But after this interview, I can honestly say I'm a little bit more confident in Starfield, because when I was sitting there looking at Phil Spencer, and he's in this really uncomfortable interview that you could see. Go watch it. It's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen Phil Spencer in. He's in this uncomfortable interview, and the only thing I can see he's confident about, he didn't even sound like he was confident of his own job. Like, look, he knows he's probably good right now in terms of job security, but it seemed like, look, I do this one or two more times, you're going to be talking to someone else. He wasn't even confident in his own job security from the way it sounded. But when that Starfield was brought up, he was extremely confident with Starfield. That could mean anything. Obviously, like he said, we gotta actually put our hands on the game itself. But what I will say is the way he was talking got through to me a little bit. Now, you guys wait. I'm already in Starfield regardless. I'm going to try Starfield regardless. And I think a lot of you that's watching, you're going to try Starfield regardless. I think it's a September release date, and we at least deserve to try that. Now, I will say, if Starfield comes out, it's buggy, it's underwhelming, I think at that point, we need to have serious conversations about Xbox and the future of Xbox in general. But right now, I'm willing to give him a couple more months and try Starfield out. I am. Especially the way Phil Spencer was talking. It just made me feel this dude's confident about Starfield. Now, clearly, that could mean anything. It could mean that he likes Starfield. Maybe, clearly to some degree, he sent Redfall out there. So what does that say about his confidence in games in general? Maybe Redfall is just one of those things where it comes to gaming politics. Game's been in development too long. We need this out. And regardless what the hit we take financially and what hit we take brand-wise, it's better than consistently putting more money into this game, because sooner or later people will forget about Redfall. And as long as Starfield hits the way it is, they can take that kind of hit. And I can be honest with you, they can. Redfall definitely underwhelmed a lot of people, but if Starfield comes out and it's a hit, then they'll be fine. But like I said, you sent Redfall out there like that. You knew you was going to get hit. And it's kind of crazy. You're talking about like mock reviews. I guess they sent Redfall to other people and they expected it in like the mid 70s, which is interesting to me because I wouldn't expect anyone to think that game would get in the 70s. I feel like most people that played that game would consider that like a 5-6 type of game. I do think that Redfall had a good concept. It was very, very poorly executed. But anyway, put in the comment section below how you guys feel. I know a lot of people are down on Xbox, and justifully so. I'm gonna be real with you. Justifully so, they deserve all the criticism they're getting. But to me, I'm gonna give them Starfield. I'm gonna give them that one more game. And obviously, even if Starfield comes out, I'm gonna still try out the other games. But I definitely will consider pulling back more and more on the Xbox brand. But as of right now, I'm waiting for that Starfield. I'm gonna give that Starfield that opportunity. I love Skyrim. I love all those games. Put in the comment section below. Do you think Starfield, if done well and done right, do you think that can slowly start to repair the Xbox brand? But put in the comment section below. I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion. Until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.